Welcome to episode 7 of Life Without Cravings. Let's talk about how to eat out on a low-carb diet. Here's the one sentence pitch, and it's not rocket science. Just don't eat the carbs. It really isn't harder than that. Just don't eat the carbs. We could finish now, because that is the complete truth of this statement. You know it to be true, I know it to be true, and still we are making this such a big deal. Which is kind of funny when you think about it, but at least it gives me something to talk about for 15 minutes. So the carbs are not going to grow legs and jump into your mouth and force you to eat them. That's never going to happen. The reason that you eat them is because you don't want to experience the feeling of not having them. And you know that. I know that you know that. And this might be cravings, it might be something else that you're having thoughts about other people thinking things about you. And it might be super strong cravings. There might be those kind of cravings that we just can't resist. Or it might be that I don't want other people to question what I'm doing, or to think things about me that I don't like, or, I just want to belong to the group because that feels better. And that's some deeper stuff that really matters, but for the sake of this episode, I'm going to give you some strategies that you can use when you go out for a low-carb meal, just in case you need more of those. I don't know. I think there are plenty, but I'm going to give you some tips anyway. So let me tell you just a very short story about what sometimes happens when I'm coaching Alex live on my YouTube channel. So he might say something along the lines, I just can't do that. And you guys who are watching it live, you want to be like super helpful, and you just offer up a bunch of strategies. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? I did this and this worked really wonderfully for me, etc. The point that you are missing is that you did not have the same shitty thoughts as Alex are having about this situation. Before someone gets over the shitty thoughts, the strategy that they're using doesn't really matter. Because if it worked, I bet you they would have already done it. And it's not because it's a shitty strategy. We can use many different strategies successfully. It's just because of the shitty thinking. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if your thoughts are just like pooing all over the place, you're still not going to be able to do it. Right? Anyway, here goes. So my first tip even. If you're going to try, if you're going to go out for a meal and you know where you're going, just have a look at the menu beforehand. Like most places, you can just go online and download the menu. Worst case, you can probably, go buy and get a menu or whatever. But I would be surprised if they don't have a menu online. And most places will have something half decent that you can eat. I promise you. But let's, for the sake of this whole conversation, say that they only have carby stuff on the menu. I know that I went by a few such places in the UK, and if you're out traveling, for example, when you stop at, a cafe or whatever, that can be the case. Like, it can be really, really bad. I can go in there, and the most appealing or the highest protein thing that I can find might be a quiche or something like that, if I'm lucky. Sometimes they don't even have that. They might just have like pies and pasties and I don't even know, things with carbs. It's just like bready things, different kind of rolls and sandwiches and God knows. All the stuff that I don't want. I go in and I'm just looking at everything, and you can almost see my eyebrows just like come together because I get more and more annoyed. And that's when, I have pretty shitty thoughts, but I don't have shitty thoughts that will make me eat those things. I have shitty thoughts about this place and what they are doing. So if this is the case, what do you do? I mean, I know what I would do. I would eat at home. And I wouldn't eat anything out. I would go there, and I would sit there. I might have a glass of water. And this might sound strange to you, but I know that it sounds strange because this is not normal behavior. Normal people don't do this. Normal people would have something. But if you go to a place that only have food that you don't want to eat, why would you? If they seriously don't have any protein or fat on the menu, is that a place where you want to eat? I mean, for me, it's just like, no, definitely not. Do you even want to support this kind of business? Wouldn't you rather support a business that serves nutritious, real food? Whether that be a restaurant, or you could use that money that you would have spent on this crap and just buy a really high quality, good sourced piece of meat that will make you feel wonderful eating it, rather than eating pies just for the sake of eating pies. Just save up all that money in a little jar. Every time you don't go and eat crap, put in that jar the money that you would have spent, and I promise you can buy quite a lot of good quality food. That's just going to pile up. It's a really good thing to do, actually. So you might also want to suggest to whoever you're going with that, you know what, don't really have anything on the menu that I like. Could we maybe go somewhere else? Like, try it. They might be open to it. If you don't ask, you won't know. But what's usually the case is that there's plenty of protein on the menu. Like, maybe not enough fat in some cases, but you can usually order something and ask them to just hold the carbs. Or replace them with something low carb. I always used to order steak and ask them if they could just sub the chips for some salad. And it was never ever a problem. Like, ever. I've never had anyone say, no, we can't do that. And if you ask them if they use real butter, for example, in the kitchen, and they say yes, you can just ask them to, put a little bit of butter on the plate for you because you want that with your steak or whatever. Just to up the fat a little bit if you are aiming at a higher fat keto diet, for example. Or in worst case, like, bring your own butter. We're so worried about what people will think about us that we are willing to sacrifice our health just so that some stranger won't think that we're weird. I mean, how weird is that? Why would you care so much about what a stranger thinks, or someone who's employed at a company, or maybe someone who's sitting at a different table? Like, let them think that you're strange. I think they're strange. They don't care about their health. That is strange to me. How would anyone just sit and eat crap? Why wouldn't you care about it? That's what I taught myself to think. That is how I want to think. That is serving me really well. I think they're strange because they don't care about their health. Like, what? Who does that? A lot of people does it. But that's beside the point. I think that is strange. So, your friends that you might be out eating with, they probably already know that you're a bit strange. And I bet you if they don't, and they find out now, and you bring your own butter, they might think you're strange, but they won't stop loving you for bringing your own butter. They'll be like, Pim brought her own butter. How odd. Now, let's get on with the conversation. Let's have some fun. Let's enjoy this time. So what? They're not going to say anything or do anything. Your relationship with them is not going to change because you brought your own butter. So, a lot of the time, we just make things a lot more complicated than they need to be. And I know that to be the case for me. I know that to be the case for pretty much everyone. And when you can watch a conversation or something that is happening from the outside, so if I watch other people and scenarios play out, I can just sit and be fascinated about how odd it is and human behavior, why we do things that doesn't make any sense when you start thinking about it. Let's say, even if you go to like a taco place, you don't have to eat the taco shells. Or let's say that you went for a pie all-you-can-eat buffet. I don't even know if any of those exist, but let's say that they do. You can just eat whatever is on the inside of that pie. Do you even know that when they started making pies, like many, many years ago, they made them really hard and thick shells so that you could hold it, and you were not necessarily meant to actually eat the bready part. They were not made for the taste, they were made to protect the inside. So why not eat it that way? You're like, I'm gonna scoop out all the goodness from here and you can keep your shitty bread. Totally fine. We don't have to eat everything that is on our plate just because it's there and just because it's edible. Maybe a pie shell isn't truly edible to you. Because maybe you can't digest that properly. That's the case for many people. And we all know that gluten isn't ideal. Gluten is the biggest thing in promoting leaky gut. So, yeah, you will get a little bit probably, even if you scoop out the pie, but unless you're super sensitive, you'll probably get away with it, right? So why not just do that? And I'm being serious. I'm not just being kind of funny for the sake of being funny. I'm being serious. You don't need to follow the conventional rules of how we should or shouldn't behave when we're out eating. That's completely up to you. You can make your own rules. Like, this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to treat food of this kind because it serves me. And you don't need strategies. You know what you would have to do to stay low carb if that's what you want to do. If you tell yourself that if I get a pie, I need to eat all of it, you're just lying to yourself. Because if I asked you, how could you make this low carb, you would know the answer. You don't need me to tell you that, but you don't like the solution because the solution makes you think that other people will judge you for it. And that's really uncomfortable. And that's it. We don't like the solution because it's going to make us feel a bit uncomfortable. So what you really need to do is to work through that problem of what is it that makes you so uncomfortable, why, and how to change that. It's not about collecting more strategies for how to do it, because if I asked you, you could probably come up with many, many ways of eating low carb when you go out. But before any of this, sometimes I think people are just too scared to go out for a meal because they think that if I'm eating some carbs, I have failed, and then I will end up binging for weeks on end, and then I'm going to put on weight, and then I'm going to have to start over, and we're just like making up all this drama. And because we did that, we're going to make sure that that is happening. It's like, no, for goodness sake, that doesn't have to happen. It's not going to happen unless you let it happen. And I want you to really hear that. The only way that is going to happen is if you let it happen, because ultimately you have control. So one meal of carbs might put some water weight on you temporarily, but you're not going to gain fat from having one meal of carbs. I promise you, you're not going to do that. Now, I just want to mention this. I recently spoke to someone who, she had a dilemma, and when I asked her, the reason that she did not want to have carbs when she went out was because it had some real immediate health consequences for her. So she was like, I can't not eat the carbs when I go out, but I don't want to do that. You know, thing that we all have. And if this is the case, if you are having a negative health consequence from doing it, you bet I'm all in. I'm all in for you not touching the carbs. Like, don't get me wrong. But for some people, it might feel much more relaxed to just do that. If it's once a month or once every 6 months or whatever, does it really matter? If you don't feel bad from doing it? And if you then choose to not do it again the next day? For me, it works perfectly fine if I'm doing that. And I did it for years. And I'm not scared of the carbs. I'm just not touching the sugar. That's my choice. That's my rules. That's what I want to do. But I don't want to obsess about something necessarily. I just want to feel relaxed and in control and make my own decisions on a case-by-case basis, but always in advance. But the problem is that a lot of the time we don't make those decisions. So you might need to decide and make a firm decision about what it is that you want to do. Because if you haven't decided, there is always going to be room for negotiation. So what happens is that somehow we think that if we go out, game's on, at the same time as we're thinking that we should stick with our low-carb diet. So those two thoughts, they don't mesh. It's like you can't stick with your low carb diet and just have a big binge on carbs. Like, no, they don't go together. You need to make a decision. Which way do you want to go? And sometimes you might want to go in the middle. Okay, yeah, I'm going to have some carbs, but I'm not going to have a huge binge. And you just decide that for yourself. And then you follow through. And then you can feel good about yourself and the control that you have in your life. And you're like, hell yes, I did it. I did exactly what I planned on doing. And I'm going to feel really good about it. So when you do that, even if you're on a low carb diet and you decide to have lots of carbs one day, have your own back. Like, I've decided this beforehand and I followed my plan. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You're not allowed to talk badly about yourself because you have made a decision and then you're stuck with it. That is great. You should talk very nicely to yourself and give yourself encouragement for having done that. Because a lot of people don't even want to go there. They don't want to make that decision. Because making decision means that we have to follow through. Oh, the pressure. I can't follow through. So our brains are very dramatic. So as soon as there is something that you don't have clear rules about, I should say, it's always going to be up for discussion. And whenever you discuss whether to eat the carbs that are right in front of you or not eating them, guess what you're going to choose? You're always going to choose to eat them because that is easy. They're there. And it's 50-50. You can decide to do it or not do it. And it's going to feel good to eat them. So, you know, I know, and you know that you're going to eat them. I would too, if I hadn't decided beforehand that I wasn't going to do it. That's the primitive part of the brain. It will always tell you that that is the best option. And then after, you're going to be pissed off with yourself because you didn't have the willpower to say no. But if you take a step back and just like, well, I cannot rely on willpower. You can never rely on willpower in the moment when you have options. You just need to decide beforehand. A firm decision, not the whimsical one. We want to be sure that this is what we're going to do. So, let's say, if you had made the decision to, before you go out, to have steak and vegetables and nothing else, and then you look at the menu and your brain's like, I wonder. You're like, sorry, we have already decided we're going to have steak and vegetables and nothing else. And the brain's like, but what about this? Like, nope. We have made a decision. This is what we're having. There is no discussion. It's so simple, and yet we make it so complicated by allowing room for discussion. So let's just recap. So the first thing I want you to do, study the menu. Then you decide what you are going to have on that menu. And if you need to make any modifications to the dish that you are going to order. And then you have a backup plan in case that dish isn't available or something else. If they can't give you salad instead of the fries, or, you know, do you want steak without the salad then? Or do you want another dish on the menu? That could be your plan B. Would you rather have that in that case? Just kind of go one step further so that you're not like getting there, oh, we sold out on steaks, and you're like, ooh, what's happening now? The whole menu opens up again, and you're like, ooh, this is a good excuse to pick the carbiest shit that I can find on the menu. Don't go there. Like, have a backup plan. And then you just practice, like, you visualize what it would be like when you get there. So they're like, hello, what would you like to drink? And you're like, I would like a glass of water, please. And then your partner says, I will have a glass of wine. What do you do then? Is wine open for negotiation, or have you decided that you're going to drink water no matter what? If wine is open for negotiation, you have work to do. Decide before you go, just like you do with the food. Are you under any circumstances going to drink anything else than water? If so, what are those circumstances? Like, be very, very clear and very specific. If you're going to drink wine, how much wine are you going to drink? Don't leave room for any negotiation. If you drink one glass of wine and You haven't even got your main dish and you're still thirsty. Are you going to order more wine, or is it water from now on? You want to know all of this beforehand. And then the waiter will ask, what do you want to eat? And you say, I would like the ribeye, please, but can I have some extra vegetables instead of the fries? And the waiter says, sure, that will be $5 extra for the vegetables. What's your reply? You might say, sure, that's fine. Or, nah, I'll be okay, just remove the fries, please. Or if you want to be an ass, sure, I'll take the vegetables and I'll take that off your tips. Just be a little bit careful with that one because they must spit in your food. I don't know if those kind of tales are true, but I wouldn't really necessarily want to risk it. They are kind of in control of my food, and that's a bit scary. And then when you're done with eating your main dish, they come out. Would you like the dessert menu? You're like, no thanks, I'm good. Same deal. Your partner might say, yeah, I'll have a look at that. What do you want to do then? Just like visualize it. Again, just plan, see what could happen, or imagine what is probably very likely to happen, and then go to those places. This is not very likely to happen, but what if it happens? Do I have a plan B or a plan C? Like, give yourself options that you have thought about beforehand so that you're not being put on the spot and just kind of have this panic reaction and just order anything off the menu because it's so uncomfortable to sit there and just be like, oh, I don't know what, I'll just take something to get rid of the waiter. It's really, really, really easy when you have a plan. What's hard is when you haven't thought about it beforehand, because then you leave room for negotiation every single time. And those negotiations, they're never going to be in your favor of you sticking with something that is related to a future goal that you can't enjoy right now. Your brain will always choose the immediate gratification when it's right in front of you. And if you think that your problem is that you don't know how to handle cravings, I have a completely free training on how to do that. All you have to do is go to pimjansson.com/replaymyc and sign up for that training, and I will email it to you. You'll find the link to that in the description, and it's called Master Your Cravings. So just do that, go through those videos, do the work in those videos, and you will learn a lot about how to handle cravings so that you don't have to deal with that or be anxious about it. That was all I had for this week. I will see you again next week. Bye!